since you can't tell, which is good because that means I've done a very good job of covering it up.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, though, it has nothing to do with booze, which is like really disappointing. I wish I had a better story. Yeah.
Yeah, a little teaser up front.
Yes. Yes. A little teaser for the talk of shame.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Well, I said it before and I'll say it again. Thank God for booze.
Yes. Thank God for booze. What are you drinking tonight?
A Petit Verdot from upstate New York.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. So I'm I'm going really classy tonight. I'm doing a Topo Chico hard seltzer in a mixed berry flavor.
Cheers to good choices.
Cheers. I'd be remiss if I didn't go ahead and introduce us. Welcome to Forbidden, the podcast where we discuss the disgusting, the dark, the disgraceful, and our unmentionables. That's right. We've slipped into something more comfortable, listeners. Hope you're doing the same. Have a cocktail in hand, as you very well know from our previous conversation there, and hope you are imbibing or at least have, something going on. Maybe you're doing a line of Coke. I don't know what you're doing.
Imbibing in your briefs, doing Coke in your cock rings. I'm only talking to dudes here, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really all we think about is dudes on this podcast. I'm sorry, ladies, but actually that's not true because I was talking about my girl crush on Anne Heche. So, my lesbian tendencies that I tend to go to, particularly if I'm drunk, I don't know what I would call myself, but I feel like I'm a little bit fluid.
You get kissy.
Yes. Yes, I do. I've gotten myself into trouble a few times, but anyway, I digress. How are you doing this evening?
Good. I'm Blake Roberts.
And I'm Amanda Kamada. Oh my God. We forgot that part. How could we forget? Thank you, Blake Roberts.
It's one of those days. I'm having one too. Apparently we're all having these days.
Yes, I think it has been a day. I found out today that the condo needs a new toilet. So
why? What did you do to it?
That's so funny. No, it's been acting up for months, and it's kind of one of those things where I'm glad that it's just a replacement of the toilet because I kind of thought like that it was going to be something more serious, like we're going to have to pull up tile situation. And finally got a plumber here after putting up with it for a number of months and found out that it just is in fact a toilet replacement. So I'm hoping that means I think a toilet replacement is kind of like what you want to spend on it, because I know there's some fucking like really cool toilets out there that are like 10 grand and I am not in the market for that. No. I am in the market for basic bitch toilet.
Yeah, toilets are pretty reasonable, or they can be.
Yeah.
Like as far as like plumbing and equipment, like bathroom fixtures go, toilet is less expensive than you might think it is if you're like a first-time purchaser.
Yeah. And I will be, because I certainly have not purchased a toilet before. That is something I have not done. So I will be going to Josh's favorite place, Home Depot, probably this weekend, looking for toilets. But anyway, that's sort of how my day's going.
Whenever I used to move into an apartment, I would always buy a new toilet seat.
Oh, that's smart. That actually is smart.
Because they're not crazy expensive. And it's just like, so I'll make this quick because I know this is not the Talk of Shame episode. So I'll try to skip over the banter as much as I can. But when I first moved to Savannah, Georgia, it was a wooden toilet seat.
It's very 80s.
Out.
Yeah. I don't like the wooden toilet seat.
It's got like a texture to it, and so many asses have shat on that toilet.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that.
There's no amount of bleach that could have made that
comfortable
for me.
Right.
So I just replaced it.
You couldn't make it right,
No.
so just replace. I kinda like that idea now. Maybe that's something that I'll start doing. I mean, can you imagine in New York apartments how many people have been through those things? Because they never
Yeah.
change the toilets there. Those things are
No.
like super industrial looking. Listeners, if you've never rented an apartment in New York City, what they do not know how to do there is put a decent toilet in your apartment. It looks like the old, or at least mine did, look like an old school toilet that you would see in a middle school. And it like flushed weird and it never worked properly. And rather than replacing it whenever, the soup would come over, like every time, and rather than replace it, they would always just repair it. And I always had the shittiest toilets in New York City than I've ever had in my entire life.
Unintentional puns. I love it.
Yes, yes. Now I digress. I guess I should like get into my story tonight.
Yeah,
This is
give us your hints.
Yeah, I will. My hints were aliens, New Hampshire, and movie. And this is
Mhm.
the second in our series of the Unexplained. And tonight I'm going to tell you the story of the Hill abduction. Have you heard of the Hill abduction?
No.
Oh, awesome. I was worried that you had, and I was honestly worried that you and I were going to pick like the same stories to do because I know that you love like the unexplained, and there was actually a movie done about it and a book. So I was worried that I was either taking your topic or we were going to show up and like you came on the first one and all of a sudden I'd be like, damn it, that's the one that I was going to do. But my sources are, of course, Wikipedia, as always, the Appalachian Mountain Club website, Reddit, and popculture.com. And there was also a movie made about it. And I watched a little bit of it, but I couldn't get through it. I tried to watch it, listener, so you didn't have to, but I'll tell you a little bit about that more at the end of the story, and you will be able to watch that for yourself. So let's talk about the Hill abduction. Barney and Betty Hill were an American couple who claimed they were abducted by extraterrestrials in Lincoln, New Hampshire from September 19th through 20th of 1961. So, long time ago.
Hold on a second. So I don't know the story very well at all, but
Uh,
I'm not kidding. I have a book in my Amazon cart about this abduction.
you're kidding me. It's
Months
probably the book.
ago,
Yeah, it's probably the book that I am actually going to mention at the end.
probably months ago when we first were trying to decide our themes,
Mhm.
I was just doing some preliminary research and I added that to cart thinking maybe I'll do that story.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
I would tell you that there is so much detail in this story and that I almost didn't do it because I knew if I went into detail about every aspect of it that it would be like a multi-part series. So I would encourage you to still get the book and or do your own research, both you and listeners, because I'm just scratching the surface here and giving you the cliff notes of what happened because there is a lot more in here that we'll get into and like little like aspects of it that you could do more research on that I'm sure a book would probably do way better justice than I can do. But they were a couple and they were abducted by extraterrestrials in Lincoln, New Hampshire from September 19th through 20th of 1961. The incident came to be known as the Hill abduction and the Zeta Reticuli incident, as two ufologists connected the star map shown to Betty Hill with the Zeta Reticuli system. And that's a star system that is a little over 39 light years away from Earth. So the extraterrestrials that apparently were involved in this, they went to ufologists. I guess it's ufologists. I don't know how you actually say it, but they actually took a star map and looked at it on the date that this actually happened. And so they basically connected it to the Zeta Reticuli system, and that is a star system over 39 years, light years away from Earth. So, listeners, if you don't know what light years are, that means that it would take you 39 years to get, a little over 39 years to get there if you were to go today. So that's really far away. And listeners, I have to tell you, if you do not believe that there is life form, and there is not life form in other areas of our world, our galaxy, our solar systems, all that kind of stuff, you must be insane, because we have no idea what's going on out there. And I
Just
definitely think that there is a lot going on out there.
I agree. If you don't believe those things, you might as well just unsubscribe from life.
Exactly, because this might happen to you, the Hill abduction. So, a little bit about the Hills. They were from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Barney worked for the U.S. Postal Service. Betty was a social worker. They were very active in their church and community and were members of NAACP. So much so, they were involved in civil rights that Barney sat on the local board of the United States Commission on Civil Rights. Now, remember, this was 1961. And they were an interracial couple at the time. So Barney was Black, Betty was white, Betty White. But that was incredibly uncommon in the US at the time. So they were incredibly involved in their local community, in civil rights, the NAACP, etc. So, a little about the encounter. So, from multiple accounts given by both Barney and Betty, while they were driving back from their belated honeymoon on US Route 3 in New Hampshire, after visiting Montreal and Niagara Falls, so they were coming back down from Canada to New Hampshire. Around 10:30 p.m. on September 19th, 1961, Betty started seeing a very bright light in the sky below the moon and the planet Jupiter while Barney was driving their car. At first, she thought it might be a falling star, but noticed it was moving up and down. So she asked Barney to stop the car for a closer look, as well to walk their dog Dulcie, because she kind of just felt creeped out about this light that, kept following them and they couldn't see. And by the way, their dog Dulcie, from a photo that I could surmise, looked like a Dachshund.
Oh.
So I know. And for those listeners who don't know, that is what Tilda Swinton Roberts Blanchetti is. I don't know if that's her name, but that's Blake's dog. So I thought that that was a fun little fact that they had a
Mhm.
Dachshund.
Yeah.
So they stopped the car, walked the dog, and sort of like in a picnic area. While there, Betty started looking through binoculars and saw an odd-shaped craft with multi-color flashing lights traveling across. Barney was sure, though, it was a commercial airliner flying over, until the object started traveling in their direction. And he said, "It's definitely not a plane." So they get into their car, obviously concerned. They began traveling, with the object continuing to come closer. They later said that it was about 40 feet long and seemed to be rotating. And the object finally
Wait,
began to,
maybe it was just a Boeing plane spinning out of control.
yeah, right.
They
Well,
tend to do that.
if it were these days, it certainly would be. Maybe did Boeing even exist in 1961, I wonder?
Maybe on another planet.
Mm. Maybe. Seems if they would have been existing that long on another planet, they would have had their shit a little more together. But anyway, they later said it was about 40 feet long. Now, when I think about 40 feet, that doesn't seem to be very long. I mean, I know that there are boats that are 40 feet long, and they're not that big. So it had to have been bigger, but it probably looked smaller because it was descending towards their vehicle. And it was silent and hovered 80 to 100 feet above their 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air. Barney said it reminded him of a huge pancake. And I actually have drawings that they did of their encounter and stuff like that. So Barney, as it started descending upon them, Barney abruptly stopped, got out of the car with his handgun, and saw something. Like I said, it was as big as a jet, but as flat as a pancake. Behind the windows of the object were beings in gray uniforms who told Barney to put down his binoculars. He tried to raise his gun, but somehow found himself unable to. Realizing that he was about to be captured, he ran back to the car and sped off. At some point, Betty and Barney heard strange beeping noises from their trunk, felt drowsy, and eventually lost consciousness. Oh my God, this is like giving me like chills just thinking about it. After regaining consciousness, though, they continued on their trip and arrived to their home around dawn, seemingly forgetting what happened to them. But the next morning, the couple woke up in their house in Portsmouth with no recollection of the events that occurred the night before. However, his shoes had been scuffed, her dress had been torn, and both of their watches had stopped working. There were shiny concentric circles on their car's trunk that had not been there the previous day. And Betty and Barney actually experimented with these concentric circles with a compass and noted that when they would move it close to the spots, the needle would whirl rapidly. But when they moved it a few inches away from the shiny spots, it would drop down.
Hmm.
Trying to piece together what happened, Betty spent hours in the library reading about the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, a civilian UFO group. She also filed a report to the Air Force as she was concerned about what had happened and about radiation. In the next couple of years, this couple suffered from disturbing dreams and anxiety. So that is something that you could research and like learn more about, like their time and like spent with the Air Force and all that kind of stuff, trying to figure out what this encounter was about, which I'm not going to get into tonight because that is, kind of another arm that you could explore with it as well. But they did contact the Air Force, who looked into it pretty heavily. But I don't know how serious they were about it, too, because in 1961, I don't know how seriously they take these encounters today. Like it always seems that like they don't take UFO encounters as seriously as they should. And I think it's getting a little bit better, but back then they probably thought that they were just wag jobs.
Yeah, probably.
In November 1961, Betty began writing down the details of her dreams. In one dream, she and Barney encountered a roadblock and men who surrounded their car. She lost consciousness but struggled to regain it. She then realized she was being forced by two small men to walk in a forest at night, and of seeing Barney walking behind her, though when she called to him, he seemed to be in a trance or like sleepwalking. The men stood about 5 feet to 5 feet 4 inches tall and wore matching blue uniforms with caps similar to those worn by military cadets. They appeared nearly human with black hair, dark eyes, prominent noses, and bluish lips. Their skin was a grayish color. So 5 feet to 5 feet 4 inches tall is around where I stand.
Mhm.
So maybe I am part alien. I'm kind of wondering if I am, because it sounds like they're pretty short beings. I think you've escaped it. But their skin was a grayish color. And in this dream, she and Barney were taken to their car where the leader suggested that they wait to watch the craft's departure. They did so and then resumed their drive home. So that's kind of where, I thought it was really strange that after that would happen to somebody, like if you lost consciousness and then got, regain consciousness, that you would just be like, oh, hey, I'm going to go and, go home. I think I would be wigging out and wouldn't be able to do so. But in her dream, it said that the leader told them to go to the car and watch the craft's departure and then leave. So that is basically what was in her dream. So she was subconsciously remembering sort of what happened. The subject of hypnosis, though, came up, and it was decided that should be carried out in order to recover previously irretrievable memories. Barney was a bit apprehensive about it, but thought it might help Betty put to rest what Barney described as the nonsense about her dreams. So I think that he was kind of, suppressing the fact that this happened to them. They were, referred to a psychiatrist named Benjamin Simon, who helped them piece together what had happened on that night. by undergoing psychotherapy and also hypnosis. So, through months of these sessions and hypnosis, a popular technique at the time, the couple began to recall what happened to them. According to the Hills, the UFO had landed on their car as they were speeding down the mountains and put them to sleep. Afterwards, the gray beings they had seen earlier had led them up a long ramp into the spacecraft. Once inside, the Hills were separated and individually tested. They were asked to climb on a metal table and remove their clothes, where the gray beings would pluck their hairs, take clippings from their nails, and peel off parts of their skin. Each sample was placed on something that resembled a glass slide. So for me, that makes me think of something that they were going to look under, like a microscope or something like that.
Mhm.
The gray beings also probed needles into their arms, legs, and heads.
Buttholes? Buttholes.
Not buttholes, just heads. But Betty recalled that one needle was even inserted to her stomach as a pregnancy test, which is about as close to pregnancy like. I mean, she said it went into her stomach. It could have been somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Throughout the ordeal, Betty and Barney Hill claimed that one of the beings was the leader who was observing the process from the side. Later, alone with the leader, Betty asked where the craft had flown. Under hypnosis, she replicated the star map shown to her on the ship. And years later, a woman named Marjorie Fish attempted to interpret Betty's reproduction of the map and concluded that the beings had come from the system, the Zeta Reticuli, that I talked about earlier in the episode. So under hypnosis, so that was, sort of Betty. Under hypnosis, Barney described the beings as generally similar to Betty's recollection of what they looked like. He said that the beings stared into his eyes with a terrifying, mesmerizing effect. Under hypnosis, he said, quote, "Oh, those eyes, they're there in my brain," from his first hypnosis session. And quote, "I was told to close my eyes because I saw two eyes coming close to mine, and I felt like the eyes pushed into my eyes." That
Ew.
was from his second hypnosis session.
The hills. The hills have eyes,
The
Amanda.
Hills have eyes. They certainly do. And from another session, he said, quote, "All I see are these eyes. I'm not even afraid that they're not connected to a body. They're just there. They're just up close to me, pressing against my eyes."
Creepy.
Very creepy. Very creepy. So very much into eyes from his recollection. While Betty reported a conversation with the leader in English, Barney said that he heard them speaking a mumbling language he didn't understand. Post hypnosis, though, publicity and Barney's and Betty kind of tried to stay away from the media and that sort of thing that were starting to surround them. They tried to go back to their regular lives. They were willing to discuss the alleged UFO encounter with friends, family, and the occasional researcher, but the Hills apparently made no effort to speak publicly about this. So Barney actually died of a cerebral hemorrhage on February 25th, 1969, at the age of 46, after which Betty then went on to become a celebrity in the UFO community after he died. So she talked about it a little bit more. But she died of cancer on October 17th of 2004 at age 85, never having remarried. That is actually my birthday. So she died on my birthday. Their story was adapted into the best-selling 1966 book, The Interrupted Journey, and the 1975 television film, The UFO Incident, where James Earl Jones actually played Barney.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I actually watched a bit of the movie. Do you remember I think it was either the late 80s or early 90s, there was a thing on the weekends called Creature Features?
I don't know that specifically, but I'm familiar with
Yeah.
similar concepts.
Well, you can actually find the movie online, and it was done on a Creature Features episode, and James Earl Jones actually played Barney. So this is actually one of the first encounters that had been heavily followed, UFO encounters, where they weren't seen as being friendly. to the people who they captured. They did this testing and all this kind of stuff on them. And so they were thought to be, a bit more sinister than, other accounts of UFOs abducting people or people having encounters, with aliens and that sort of thing. But most of Betty Hill's notes, tapes, and other items have been placed in the permanent collection at the University of New Hampshire, which is her alma mater. And in July of 2011, the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources marked the site of the alleged craft's first approach with a historical marker. So they actually have on the side of the road a historical marker in New Hampshire dedicated to the sighting of this and their capture in the UFO. So apparently the state of New Hampshire believes that it happened. And that is the abbreviated story of the Hill abduction.
That was fun. That was a good one. When you said it was pancake shaped, I kind of hoped they would be friendly. What if they like abducted them and they did their probing, as they do, but then they treat them to like a nice mediocre breakfast at the intergalactic house of pancakes.
Right. I wonder what they eat, like it would be nice to know like what would they prepare them? Would it be like on Star Wars, where they're eating like weird shit, or drinking like some like crazy looking cocktails at the bar there, that they had and stuff like that. Yeah. Or is it just stuff like we eat? Or do they eat meat? Are there even animals up there? You know what I mean? Like you really don't know. But like I said, there's tons of information out there about this particular abduction, and I could have gone on forever, but just wanted to give sort of the Cliff Note version to tempt you into doing a bit more research of your own, listeners.
Yeah, I do want to
get that book now.
I'll put it on my list along with my like 30 other books I have right now.
Right.
But yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
I love a good alien story.
I know. I mean, I can't imagine, and have you ever driven through New Hampshire at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful state, by the way. So I'm thinking about like the 2-lane winding roads that they have there going through the woods and, the North Woods of New Hampshire. If you're coming down on US 3, my sister actually, when she was married, had a cabin up in New Hampshire on a lake that was absolutely beautiful. We unfortunately lost that in the divorce, but it was a lovely drive. And I'm sure that this was probably around where that was in New Hampshire, which is beautiful. And have you ever, do you believe in, or have you ever been under hypnosis in your life?
I have not been, but I don't disbelieve. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
I actually have been put under hypnosis 3 times. And it was to, you can do it for like smoking cessation. You can do it for like things like they did for past life regression or, dreams and stuff like that. I actually went under hypnosis to stop biting my fingernails because I used to do it so voraciously that I had like absolutely like no fingernails. They were like gross, like nubs. And whenever my sister, who I was just talking about, I had the cabin, whenever she got married, I decided that I wanted to stop biting my fingernails so that I could have nice fingernails for her wedding. So I actually went under hypnosis 3 times to stop biting my fingernails. And that was probably, my guess was probably in the year 2003 or something like that. And I have not bitten my fingernails since. So it actually worked for me. Yeah.
Man, I would be a terrible hypnologist, hypnotherapist, hippopotamus.
Hippopotamus.
Hypnotherapist. Because I would do that, like I would cure you of that thing, but I would sneak something else in there.
Yeah.
Like every time someone says the word vernacular, you start clucking like a chicken.
Yeah, exactly. It was a very weird experience though, because like, I remember every time that I did it, like, I definitely was in a state of, like, where I felt like I was asleep, but I wasn't asleep. But I felt very, very tired after each session, like, when I woke up from the hypnosis. It was a very weird feeling, but it actually worked. And while I still don't like having long fingernails, I keep them very short. I can't stand like really long fingernails. Like I think they're beautiful on other women. I just can't. They bug me when they hit a certain length. But now I cut them. I keep them. They're not taken care of right now. I'm not in red door form right now where I used to be able to get free manicures. But anyway, it actually worked for me. So hypnosis did work for me.
Yeah,
So
that's
fun
kind of cool.
fact. Yeah. Yeah. So I do believe in their story about, and the lost time that they had, whenever they were putting their stories together, like what should have taken them a certain number of hours took them almost a day, to get back to their home without them even realizing that they had lost time during this until they went under hypnosis and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's like a common through line for abduction stories is
Hmm.
missing time.
Yeah.
I loved the X-Files.
Yes.
Loved it. I still love it. Like I'll throw it on a couple times a year. I'll like watch a couple episodes here and there.
Hmm.
But I remember that being a common theme. Like whenever they would do abductions or UFO stories on X-Files, there would always be like the missing time,
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's Barney and Betty Hill.
Well done. That was
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing it.
Yes. Maybe you'll be the next one to get abducted. I feel like UFO stuff happens a lot out by where you are, like in the desert and stuff like that. So who knows if you and Josh are out one night late at night and start getting followed by something. You never know. You may be anally probed.
Sign me up. Yeah, maybe I'll share like the Phoenix Lights story in our talk of shame. Just like a
Yeah.
brief little because
Yeah.
yeah, it is definitely a thing out in the desert.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well,
Well,
where can listeners continue to hear and watch all of these wonderful things that we're doing and talking about here?
well, if you're seeing our faces right now, you're watching on YouTube, so thank you and continue to do that. Also, listen to full episodes on Apple and Spotify. You can also catch the Talk of Shame episodes there, which is essentially our recap slash banter. Plus, we're like one or two drinks in by that point, so it gets a little crisper.
Fun. Current events. We always talk about weird current events that are happening, or maybe just things that, you should know about that are happening. And
And
those,
we typically give our hints for the next episode. So you get a little
exactly.
teaser.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
the most important. Except for the fact that we're usually pretty drunk by the time we hit the talk of shame. So they're a little more fun than these in some
Yeah.
ways.
And if you're watching right now and wondering why Amanda's eye looks like that, you'll find out in the talk of shame.
Yes, you will find out in the talk of shame.
Yeah. And of course, remember to rate, review, and subscribe if you have not already, and share with your friends. And did I cover that?
Yeah, follow us on social, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at The Forbidden Pod. Send us your story ideas and feedback. We'd love to hear from you at hello@theforbiddenpod.com. And as always, go to our website. We have fun little photo shoot excerpts on our website, www.theforbiddenpod.com. So some real fun ones coming up for this Unexplained series. I'm pretty excited about the series. I was a little worried that I wasn't going to be able to come up with anything good, but I thought this episode went pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, so now we've covered Bigfoot and aliens. What's in store next? You'll have
Well,
to.
I think we're going to find out on the Talk of Shame.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So tune in next time.
Oh,
So, Blake, thank you.
Amanda, thank you.
And listeners, as always, we thank
Thank you.
you.